Hi guys, this story I want to share with you could result in rioting. So as we know, Trump has been imposing tariffs on pretty much every country around the world, even ones that don't have people in them. But the focus of his ire has been China. Now the tariffs imposed have had their expected result, a drop in trade, but China has also banned or limited the export of certain goods to the US. Now there was a report at the beginning of this week that Trump would soften his approach to China, and a meeting of his administration with big retailers may be why. However, that doesn't mean that we won't see massive chaos as stocks begin to dry up.
But get this, we are also reporting today that a group of CEOs of the top American retailers, Walmart, Target, Home Depot, and Lowe's, had a private meeting with Trump on Monday. They had plenty to say, but there was one warning that stuck out. Empty shelves, they said. Empty shelves in American stores as soon as this summer because of Trump's actions.
It is that meeting in the Oval Office on Monday that we learned about, and other reporters did as well, that really apparently caught the president's attention. And I am told that business leaders, the Business Roundtable and others have been reaching out to White House Chief of Staff Susie Wiles and other advisors here, trying to get a meeting with the president, trying to convey to him in real terms the real fallout of some of this uncertainty, some of these tariff policies. And it was that empty shelves comment, we are told, that really caught the president's attention. Of course, you can see why. The whole idea that we would have an interruption in the supply chain, sort of like we all saw in the pandemic, simply because of his policies, is something that would be difficult for the White House to endure. So that is one of the reasons we are told that he changed his posture. It's interesting.
It's interesting, but is it enough? Is this change in posture going to be enough? Look, there are a number of things to respond to here. First of all, the chain stores that were mentioned, they have built up supplies before Trump imposed the tariffs. So Donald Trump was saying, look, I'm going to impose these tariffs. And what they did was, and this is not just for the chain stores, but a lot of companies in the US imported a huge amount of goods. Apple, for example, imported a huge number of iPhones, getting ready for these tariffs. They weren't sure Trump would be insane enough to do it, but they wanted to have an insurance policy against it. Now, those stocks are going to run out, and this is going to be a big problem. Suppliers abroad have already been holding back in some cases, and we saw the story recently when it came to Land Rover. They decided, look, we'll stop shipping to the US because we don't know what the situation will be, how much the consumer will have to pay extra as a result of the tariffs. Donald Trump imposing a tariff one day, reducing it the next, so it's better for us to hold off. US importers on the other side are either unable to afford the extra cost, as I covered in another story, or they can't pass it on to the consumer. They don't believe that the consumer can absorb that extra cost. China has also limited the sale of certain goods to the US, which will add to the shortage. And the tariffs aren't just on goods from China, but goods imported from other markets as well. You know, we tend to focus on China, but we forget about the other markets that the US relies on as well. And finally, panic is going to be a difficult thing for a low-trust society to deal with. See, Donald Trump doesn't want people to panic. He doesn't want them to hoard. But he has built his entire career, and the Republican Party has built their entire political strategy on lying to people. So it's going to be very difficult to convince people in a low-trust society that everything is okay and for them not to hoard. Now, we hope that this will not result in rioting. We hope that this will not result in a disaster. But Donald Trump has put all the pieces in place to create an atmosphere where people are worried, they don't trust the government, and they eventually start hoarding. And that's where you end up with serious unrest. Because unlike the pandemic, where everyone understood what was going on, and there was an active approach to trying to get round the problem, when it comes to Donald Trump, you don't know what he's going to do. You don't know what's going to happen from one day to the next. How is a business supposed to plan when Donald Trump says on Monday, I'm going to impose a tariff of 140% or 145% or 150%, and then the very next day he says, actually, no, I'm not going to go ahead with it. And then the following day, yes, it's back on again. How is anyone supposed to plan in that sort of environment? So you're probably going to see shortages. And once again, in a low trust society where citizens don't trust their government, it's going to be difficult for Trump to convince the public, no, don't worry, everything is okay. Even if it is okay,